What is incredible to me is that it was possible to expose this thing before. Nobody did. I agree with David. It's about equal responsibility before, but afterwards, the bulk of the responsibilities now sits with regulators to clean it up and journalists to tell the truth.
Chamath Palihapitiya gives the mainstream media a hard tackle on the series of interviews and airtime that they're giving to Sam Bankman-Fried in order to change the public narrative and give him a free pass. Welcome to today's episode. Please subscribe to the channel to enjoy our in-depth analysis. We go over to Chamath right now.
Can I make a comparison to SBF and Trump through the lens of the media? So if you go back to 2016, Donald Trump violated every single establishment bias that these left progressive journalist elites had. And so they basically just attacked. But then you went into the election and there was a very clear data point that said whatever you thought was at best limited, and you missed the tone of the country. Because 50+% of the country held a very different view about this person. And instead of taking a step back and then the left media, the mainstream media, re-underwriting and learning and then saying, you know what, mea culpa, I got this wrong, they just doubled down. And they said, no, it still doesn't meet our priors, and so we're just going to ring fence this problem and we're going to just try to destroy this issue because, we want to control the narrative and by result, we want to control power. Now you look at SBF, it's the exact opposite. He went to the perfect elite private high school. Then he went to one of the most prestigious elite private universities.
MIT.
His parents teach governance of all things at one of the most elite liberal institutions in America.
Stanford.
They are in the establishment of the progressive left. And what happened was he took customer funds and all of this money. He made tens of millions of dollars of political donations. He wrapped himself in this blanket of a progressive left-leaning cause called effective altruism. And all of the mainstream media fell for it and embraced him, as well as some politicians, because it met everything that they themselves also bought into.
Yes.
After the whole FTX debacle became public, we got to learn more about the background he came from and the possible influence his parents had in helping him to climb the ladder so fast. Kevin OLeary, a renowned investor and one of the biggest supporters of FTX and its founder Sam Bankman-Fried, known as SBF, reveals in a tweet that he supported SBF because of his parents, who were both compliance lawyers. In his tweet, he said, "I see everything. I'm a bit of an advocate of Sam. He has two parents who are compliance lawyers. If there's ever a place I could be that I'm not going to get in trouble, it's going to be at FTX." We're sure that he and many others have realised their mistake of trusting his pedigree rather than trusting in due diligence like they should have done. SBF, also being an MIT graduate of physics and mathematics, added colour to why he could be trusted, as it created a persona of a trustworthy person that knew what he was doing. This lesson can be useful to all of us going forward, not to be carried away by the portfolio of a founder of any company that we wish to invest in, but rather to focus on scrutinising the company itself. On the other hand, the media seems to be helping SBF recreate the narrative of the fraud that happened at FTX and Alameda, which has caused a huge loss to investors as well as clients that had used the company's services. The collapse is being portrayed as an oversight issue, but there's every indication that shows that the collapse was a result of fraudulent practices at both companies. Now let's listen as Chamath talks more about the role that the press is playing in helping SBF downplay his involvement.
And now you have this cataclysmic event, a multi-deca-billion-dollar fraud or bankruptcy, millions of customer accounts who are frozen, tens of millions to hundreds of millions to billions of dollars lost and stolen from them. And they refuse to re-underwrite this kid. And the reason is because in order to do so, it's like eating your own tail. And that's why they don't want to do it. And so this is why you have the media basically allowing him to do an apology tour. Now, this is his second time at manipulating them. The first time he was able to manipulate them by basically being one of them. And now he's allowing them and their desire to basically protect themselves so that he can create some kind of a defense for himself. And I just think the whole thing is gross because it misses the entire mood of the nation. This is an enormous financial fraud that was perpetrated on tens of millions of people. And there's no accountability because in order to do so, the media would effectively have to admit that they missed it and they got it wrong. And they refuse to do it. And I think that is the really big problem that nobody is really speaking out about is like, well, if these folks are meant to be the last stop to make sure that there's truth and honesty and transparency in society, and you can't count on them, and in fact, they're just going to reflect their own narrative, what is one supposed to do to learn the truth?
It was easy for SBF to manipulate the press. Most journalists know nothing about the cryptocurrencies and how they worked, so when SBF came along throwing money at them, all they could do was give him the publicity that he needed. Before the eventual revelation of the fraud that was going on behind the scenes, Sam Bankman-Fried was a darling of the media, featuring on the biggest platforms. He was always portrayed with the generosity of positive media coverage. Outlets such as Fortune magazine put SBF on its cover with the title "The Next Warren Buffett." With the incriminating evidence coming out about SBF, you'd expect the media to backtrack on their publicity of the man, but instead they've doubled down just so that they can avoid admitting to their mistake or their intentional image laundry. Davis Richardson, a Web3 media consultant, revealed that there was a desperate need for journalists covering crypto to find someone who was not a craven fraudster. People in the media wanted this to be the guy in crypto who's actually doing the right thing, and he was supposedly allied with regulators, supposedly on the right side of this. But he's actually doing the same shit that everybody else is doing in the industry.
Look how convoluted and intertwined all these people are. Gensler's intertwined with the parents.
Yeah.
Parents apparently bundled a bunch of money to Elizabeth Warren. He was dating the CEO of the business that he owned 90% in. There are all these other random shell companies that he owned 100% of where they were lending back and forth hundreds of millions to billions of dollars.
Yeah.
To David's point, that is a sophisticated con that you have to architect. And the way that he was able to get away with it is that not a single reporter or regulator thought to dig in. And the reason, I think, is because he said all of the right things that wanted them to embrace him. What is incredible to me is that it was possible to expose this thing before. Nobody did. I agree with David. It's about equal responsibility before, but afterwards, the bulk of the responsibilities now sits with regulators to clean it up and journalists to tell the truth.
There's no doubt that Sam had used his deep connections with regulatory bodies, the political class, and the influence of his parents to create an image for himself, and he's doubling down on shifting the narrative of what actually happened. We'll continue to monitor the story very closely and give you the updates you need, so be sure to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.